You know, people love to say, money can't buy you happiness. Well, here's the deal. The folks saying that, they're usually not the ones counting change for groceries or losing sleep over rent. For the rest of us, let's be real. Even a modest sum could wipe out most of the daily stress and struggles we face. Many of you have been asking for this topic, so today we're tackling it head on. What does living in poverty really do to your mind? How does the psychology of someone change when they're stuck in survival mode? We're going to dig deep into this today, so stick around as we explore the psychological toll of growing up in poverty. The reality of poverty versus wealth. Let's be clear, being raised in wealth doesn't just buy you nice clothes, a safe neighborhood, or a pantry full of food. It buys you hope. It buys you security. It buys you the belief that tomorrow could actually be better than today. When you grow up poor, you don't get that luxury. Poverty traps you, makes you feel like you're running a race you'll never win. And with the cost of living skyrocketing, it feels impossible just to survive, let alone dream. Now sure, there are ways out of poverty, but, and this is a big but, it's not just about working harder. There are psychological barriers to overcome first. Short-sighted decisions. Research shows that when you're trapped in poverty, you're more likely to make short-sighted financial decisions. We're talking about risky, spur-of-the-moment choices that might feel good today, but sink you deeper in the long run. Whether it's buying something you can't afford just to feel a little control, or taking out loans you can't pay back, these choices come from a place of hopelessness. And before anyone judges, let's get this straight. People in poverty aren't reckless because they want to be. They're human. Sometimes, when life is nothing but a struggle to survive, people reach for a little comfort, even if it's temporary. Coping through bad habits. Now let's talk about those destructive habits like drinking and gambling. Anyone can fall into these traps, rich or poor. But here's the thing. When you've got money, bad decisions are just bad decisions. When you're poor, bad decisions can turn into life-altering disasters. For the wealthy, gambling is a thrill. For the poor, it's often an escape. But that escape is costing them more than money. It's feeding into the very anxiety and hopelessness they're trying to avoid. Money trauma from childhood. If you were raised in poverty, let's not sugarcoat it. You knew. You felt it. While other kids were going on vacations, buying the latest gadgets, and living comfortably, you were constantly aware of what you didn't have. And now, as an adult, you're probably still feeling the effects. Maybe you're overly cautious with money, or maybe you spend too easily, because no one taught you how to handle it. Maybe you've been stuck thinking, I'll never have enough, even if you're doing better now. That's the scar poverty leaves behind, this lingering insecurity that can last a lifetime. The hidden resilience of poverty. Let me tell you something. Growing up poor doesn't mean you're weak. In fact, studies show it can make you more adaptable. But let's not romanticize that, all right? Sure, poverty forces you to adapt, but it also forces you to live in a constant state of stress. That's not a gift, that's a burden. And no, you can't always adapt your way out. Sometimes, the environment you're in, whether it's a toxic neighborhood or the lack of healthcare, leaves you with no way out, no matter how resilient you are. Here's another tough truth. Poverty often robs people of a solid education. And when you're forced to settle for a poor quality education, you're starting a 100-meter race 500 meters behind everyone else. It's not that people in poverty aren't smart, they're just blocked from reaching their full potential because of the circumstances around them. Education opens doors, but when you're denied that, you're left playing catch-up for the rest of your life. It can be discouraging, and that feeds into the negative cycle, making you feel like you'll never quite get ahead. And we can't ignore this part. Growing up in poverty limits your access to mental health care. If you needed help as a kid, whether it was for something like ADHD or anxiety, you probably didn't get it, and that can really mess with your self-image. Instead of understanding that you had challenges that could have been treated, you were left to feel stupid, lazy, or like you just couldn't measure up. And those feelings don't magically disappear when you become an adult. If you grew up in poverty, it's likely you feel like you've been running behind your whole life. You're trying to get on top of your finances, trying to feel secure, and trying to manage your mental health, all while it seems like others are just sailing through life. But let me leave you with this. People who didn't grow up in poverty might have a head start, but nobody's got everything figured out. The real question is, what are you going to do next? What's the next step you can take to break the cycle and build a better life? Let us know what part of growing up in poverty affected you the most in the comments below. And if this video spoke to you, give it a like and subscribe to Sci Factors. We're here to keep this conversation going.